Welcome, everybody, to another edition to Tales from the Cage. It's been a while. Had a little stuff going on with Nitro Grappling Expo. Now that it's out of the way, get to continue this. We are back today with Kevin English, a staple in Northwest Indiana and Chicagoland MMA. Kevin, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Not bad. So let's take it from the beginning. You obviously have a pretty extensive wrestling background. You come from a wrestling family. I know your dad was influential on you. Your younger brother wrestled for a very long time as well. Um, where let's start with the beginning of your wrestling credentials. Where did you first begin wrestling? Which club was it?
I think our first wrestling club was in the IKWF at Gordon Tech. We were there for like a year. Um, and someone turned us on to the Conrad brothers, who are really deep in Illinois wrestling. Randy, Ray, Roy. They're all in the Hall of Fame, I think. And then Buddy, who wound up being our coach, we went out to Conant and wrestled for them. I think from 8 years old, maybe, all the way into eighth grade. So they were very, very influential, those coaches. I didn't know how deep their roots were until maybe just a few years ago. Eddie Geezy was telling us, and I was at a little get together, and he's what, Big Ten champ. I think he's got the most wins in Minnesota history, and he was part of that regime. And then go figure, my first wrestling camp at like 8 years old, Dave Schultz was there. I didn't know this until I was an adult, so it's pretty cool. So that was
Where
like
were
my
you living at
roots.
this time?
We were in the city. We were in the city. My dad was driving hour and a half, 2 hours
Okay.
for us to train. So and then I don't even know how it happened, but we were at a national tournament coming back down 65 and saw Maryville College, right? That's what it looks like back then. And I'm being funny, Maryville High School. And that's where we wound up going first year for probably the next 2, 3 years of our wrestling career were there.
Okay. What was the transition like from eighth grade to high school for you when it comes to match duration, a little bit steeper competition, more traveling, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so my personal, it was difficult. The transition was difficult. I wasn't prepared mentally. There were a lot of those things now that I think I teach our athletes differently. That transition's huge. You
Yeah.
go from wrestling boys to men, right? The puberty level hits, strength and conditioning changes. You go from wrestling, maybe another 14-year-old to now I got to wrestle a man.
No, exactly.
I'm
I was just say that's what
go
a lot
ahead.
of people don't realize is there's a huge dropout rate between eighth grade and freshman year. Like people don't
Oh,
talk about it, but it's actually really big.
it's huge. I try to tell with the academy that I run now, with the wrestlers that transition now, I tell others it's mustaches and tattoos, guys. You go from wrestling, boys to mustaches and tattoos. And they look at me and it's like it's real. It's the level changes there. So
Right.
I hope that as a coach now I'm getting them to transition a little bit easier. I mean, I think if you look at all around in general, look at some of the youth coming in there, they're a threat early now compared to maybe when I was in high school. Not saying we didn't have young talent. I'm saying it's different now.
Right. No, it definitely is evolution. Um,
Yeah.
what did you do after high school for wrestling?
So yeah, I had like a crazy high school career. Yeah, I was only eligible for like a year and a half, which is nuts. I was 77-6, I think. Mediocre, didn't get to compete much. Injuries, grades. I transferred from one school to another. I was held out for an entire year. I was ranked one that year. Um, I didn't think I was going to get to wrestle on the next level. After I lost my senior year of eligibility, that was the year I was supposed to, make my mark or whatever. I didn't think I'd wrestle. I chased it one more time. I beat some real high level guys, and then I blew my knee out actually and tore my ACL. And I thought I'd be done forever. I almost hung it up. I got lucky, rehabbed it up, won some big tournaments. I remember the Pawn brothers, Joe and John Pawn.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember those.
I know the names.
Uh, they were. Yeah, they were training, and I wound up hooking up with one of them. They were up at the Olympic Training Center in Northern Michigan, and which is relatively really new back then. It was about
Right.
19 years old, and got picked up there, started wrestling a little bit more there, and then John was fighting in Japan already, like taking MMA fights out there,
Mhm.
and I think I was 19. That's when around that time I was dabbling there in the USOEC, and then I was trying to transition. I wanted to make money, and that's when I wound up. I think I saw was it Andy Trevino. I don't know if you remember
I
that
do.
name.
Yeah, he was
And,
coaching at Braulio School for a little bit when I started over there.
there you go. Yeah, he was a state champ back in the day. He coaches at Chesterton now. So I saw him at Calumet High School, and it was like my first live MMA fight. And he won a trophy like the size of him, and I was stoked. I was like, "Man, where do you train?" I go to Braulio's like on Monday after that. That was it. I think I transitioned like right around that time
So
out of
was
wrestling into
Braulio your
MMA.
first introduction from wrestling into MMA, or did you have any type of MMA training before that?
Yeah, no, Braulio was number one. We went into his room the next day. I remember like locking up with some jujitsu guys and loving it, but then at the same time like getting yelled at for wanting to pick people up and slamming them, and that mentality is I wasn't used to at all. Yeah, that was my
Remember who was over
introduction
there at the
to
time? Was like Joe Langford or Aaron Cracky or any of them there?
Langford was there. Man, a couple guys now that are black belts that I can't remember. I see them sometimes online, but yeah, and then um yeah, Joey was still a white belt,
Maybe.
maybe a blue belt,
Yeah.
but man, like super tough.
Oh, he
Yeah.
was really good. He was like on his way out right before I started, but he would come in once in a while to visit. But he got a really good job. I think he became like a oh man, some type of like an electrical engineer or something. And he moved. But I heard a lot of stories of him. And I know he fought quite a few times. He was like legend there. We're like, oh, if he would have stayed in it, he would have been a champion, this and that. Was Miguel Torres
No,
there or no?
no, he wasn't there yet. This was 99, and so I was 19.
Okay.
I'm 44 now.
Yeah.
Man. But I think my first fight was Silver Bullet outside. No weigh-ins. They'll size you up. 2-ounce gloves, shoes, no paperwork. Just
Where was
sign
this at?
sign here. And Portage, the Silver Bullet behind Pepe's.
Okay.
In- Yeah. And then of course you went from there to what, Finkeys.
Finkeys, yes.
What was the
Did
Yeah.
Braulio book that silver bullet fight, or did someone else?
I think the Silver Bullet one was all Braulio's show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe Robinson's. I don't know back then, or Morrison, or who ran it, but uh, I remember just going and signing up and just scrapping. Those were the days.
Right. So your first like
I
fight
think
on paper
uh,
when it comes to like internet records, or it's not first fight, but what Sherdog and MMA.TV will date back to anyway. York Ash, who you ended up training together after, it was a total fight challenge, but at the time, total combat challenge at the Hammond Civic Center. Did you know York before that fight or no?
no, not at all. It was that was a no time limit fight, if you remember. I think I choked him out in like 10 minutes or something, or 9 minutes, or
9:45.
there you go.
Who
That
were
was
you
crazy.
training with at that time?
Had to be Braulio and Robinson. I was bouncing around. I don't think I was with Dunlin yet. I definitely wasn't with Dunlin yet. I think I was training with those two teams, bouncing back and forth.
Do you remember when you went over to Dueland?
Right when the Ultimate Fighter started to take off, I think that show
It's like
right around
2003, 2004.
something like that. Yep. And then popped in there and was like, okay, these are where all the wrestlers are at.
So was that the reason why you went over there, or was there other?
Oh man, that was where to go. That's what everybody said. That's where all the iron was at. Iron
Mhm.
sharpens iron, right? And
Yep. Yep.
kind of my mentality was that my style was there at that time. Yeah,
So
that was a brutal room.
who would you say at that time, like when you first went over there, um, and at that like early 2000s, I'm assuming I'm trying to think who would be there that so I say I'm assuming Darren Elkins wasn't there yet. He had to be in college
Okay.
at Wisconsin Parkside. Obviously Keith and Justin. Who else was in there? Was Mark Birch at the time or no?
Birch was in there. I actually sparred some with Birch. Like obviously he held back. He's a big boy.
Mhm.
Birch was there. Darren was getting there. Like I remember his very, very beginning amateur days. Like I tell stories about Darren being a baby in the sport, but we all knew him from wrestling. And then I wrestled with his brother Ricky. Ricky was a freshman when I was a senior. Ricky
Yeah.
was tough. People really know about how good Ricky was. Ricky was nasty. I mean, he came into the circle when it was me, Tabor, and Freddie Joseph. We're all three ranked number one in the state and seniors. I think, well, Freddie's younger, but he won state that year. And then Ricky comes in as freshman and he's battling with us and had no quit, just like his brother, Darren, obviously. But Darren's a DVT he's new. And I think I already had a bunch of fights under my belt. I think I might have been booked to fight for the IFL already. And Darren's in there relatively new. That's probably
Yeah.
around the time.
So I was gonna say like 2003 is when he would have graduated high school, and then he went over to Wisconsin Parkside after. So I'd assume he'd kind of be away at college. You ended up fighting in 2005 at Dueling Classic 2. So I'm assuming you were with Keith already at that time. Um, those early days of Dueling, who would you say, not the entirety, but when you first went in there, when I said you were going between Pat Robinson's school and Braulio's, and then you make the move over to
Right.
Dueling, who gave you your toughest goes?
Oh man, Keith was so dang tough. Uh, Keith was unassuming too, and just he didn't look tough at all. And you locked
Right.
up with that kid, and for for someone that doesn't have a wrestling pedigree, I mean, I got to go up to the Olympic Training Center and train with some really good Greco guys, and you lock up with Keith, and he's on that level, and you're like, how?
Right.
So Keith was obviously Justin was still really, really tough at that time, just wasn't competing and he was still always in good shape. So that was a really tough go. And he was in there, in and out, I think, and then Tabor was in there and Tabor was doing really, real good. Those two battled out, if you remember, later on, but they were
Yes,
both
yes.
in there.
Which yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit, but yeah,
Carl,
no, I definitely remember that Total Fight Challenge.
yeah, Carl and Tony Wozniacki were in there. I mean, at times we had a bunch of wrestlers in and out of that group. Um, Tony was really, really tough. What did he fight at like 180? Um, yeah, the whole core group was pretty tough. I think a little bit later too, Shockley came in too,
Yeah.
and he was another really tough. So trying to remember back, it seems so long, but it doesn't.
So you ended up fighting after that dueling fight, you go against Joe Pearson, triangular strangler, back in a time when he was still like really hot. Um, but this was also 2005 before the internet was what it was today. Did you know that he had
Yeah.
a hot streak of triangles or no?
Yes and no. Um, Man, that was my Achilles. If you look back at some of my big losses, I put myself in those situations. Um, yeah, I hit Joe. I knew and I didn't, right? Like I didn't uh I didn't have the mat skills in the jiu-jitsu that I should have had at that moment for that time. I was more just a straight wrestler, still a brawler, still trying to learn more, I think on that level. He was definitely way hotter at the time and had momentum going. I mean, I remember after that he even gave well, what did he fight Torres after that? He went did he fight what's his name in the WEC, didn't he?
He fought Uriah
Faber?
Faber in the WEC. Yeah.
Also, yeah, right
And
after,
he
yeah.
actually fought in Pride. He beat I think he beat Oshiro Maeda with a guillotine in Pride.
I hit Joe so hard. I remember in that fight, I tomatoed his eye, and then he jumped guard, and I game plan was to press him up against the ropes and just not even go down and make him stand up and then hit him again and then go from there. And I should have, but when I closed his eye, like his eye literally closed. I hit him as we came down. I remember the slam, that's what it was. And then I hit him and I thought, okay, I'll be okay because I smelled blood, like his whole eye closed. He got me in his go-to, you know. I went and trained with him after that in Iowa, by the way.
Yeah. Was that at Militich or somewhere else?
Yep. Yeah, I went to Pat's.
Okay.
Yeah, we go up on the week. Joe was a great kid, man. He was cool.
So you say you mentioned pushing him against the ropes. Now that's something that like a lot of like people don't, they either don't remember or the ones who just weren't there at the time. Local MMA in this area was traditionally done in a boxing ring. All right. And there also wasn't a plethora of wrestlers. There's a few, all right, but like half and half. A lot of jujitsu guys, a lot of strikers. I mean, really, a lot of jujitsu guys fighting. You're watching the UFC on TV, seeing that they get to utilize a cage, and then when you fight locally, it's in a ring against ropes, which is a big disadvantage. How was that like mentally for you, whether it's preparation or were you ever envious of not being able to use a cage to your advantage when other styles could utilize the ropes a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a good one. So like now that I'm out of the game, you go back and reassess different things like that, and all of those things played into how you go into the ring or the cage. I could remember. I think there was the Bourbon Street ones where the cage is pretty small and going, okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
beneficial to me because I can cut the corners easy, press you up against the cage, and I can implement my Greco or my wrestling, and I don't have to worry about the stand up. On the flip side, I fought Santino DeFranco. I forgot where I fought him at, but it was in a huge cage, and they were saying that was like almost like the octagon style at that time. I couldn't cut corners on him, and when I chased him down, man, he tore my leg up, and I wasn't prepared for how I was chasing him down. It was just different. And then you just said ropes, it's the same thing. Yeah, pressing up against a rope and falling through is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That fight you mentioned was at close quarters combat in North Carolina.
There you go.
So Wade Choate, you fight him where again, internet wasn't a thing, but when you're bringing, if people were going to events enough, often enough, people started knowing who was who just from either locker room or in the crowd. Wade Choate was tough. He was from Silverbacks, Valley Tudo with Bob Long. What did you know about Wade before that fight? That was in 2006, that Total Fight Challenge.
He had beat up one of my buddies. That's all I knew. Like he had really good stand up for me at the time, and that was pretty much it. I just knew he had beat up. I think he had. Yeah, I forgot which teammate he fought, but he brought him into deep water. He may have even dropped him, and they said it was gonna be a tough fight. And that was about it. I don't think I got to watch him fight before. Maybe I did. I don't remember. He almost kicked me in the face. I remember that during the fight. So.
Yeah, definitely a crafty guy. What did you think of the Hammond Civic Center being such a big venue? And at that time, like they would actually draw really big crowds. Like if you go now to like an event, there's like no one in there. They don't even like pull the bleachers out. Nobody goes in the balcony. It's just different. But back then, that place was packed. Like, what was the atmosphere like for you?
Oh man, you could feel it shaking. It was sold out. You would feel like you couldn't see the people in the rafters, the smoke going. It was incredible. I mean, even when I didn't fight there, you go there's some big names that come through there. So the atmosphere was always really, really cool. You're right. I went to some as of recent, and it's just not the same. The atmosphere, they don't pack it like they used to.
Why do you think that is? I try to ask a lot of people that. I mean, like if you look at the numbers of the UFC is still growing. So it's not like MMA is dying. MMA is getting bigger and bigger, but it seems like local MMA. And one thought it was, okay, is it oversaturated? And it's really not. There's not a lot of events. It's not like there's one every other week where it's just too much. Um, I don't know. What do you think caused like the downfall of local MMA when it comes to attendance
Yeah.
anyway?
I don't know, really. I'm not in it as much as I should be. I know that. I would love to be and get back into it. I try. So I don't know. I think people turn off different directions. My direction went wrestling because that's my background, right? And then looking at the local stuff, man, who's the big name? Who's the big draw around here? I think back in the day, we had a lot of local talent. It was packed. Like
Right.
our area was, we were deep. The depth in this area for local MMA, I think, was just incredible at that time. Like you had just said it, Robinson had a stable full of guys. Uh, Braulio had a big stable full of guys. Then DVT had their stable. Um, just across the Illinois line. Then you can start getting into that. Everybody was deep with big names and guys that were good, like really good.
Right.
So
Well,
maybe
and one
that's
thing
it.
that I feel that like happens now, and it's not just now, it's maybe the last 10 years, maybe even a little bit longer than 10 years, is once a fighter, once a pro fighter starts getting pretty good, they immediately leave. They take off. They go to Greg Jackson's, they go to ATT, they go to wherever it is. What is it going to say? Uriah Faber's gym, Alpha Male, wherever they get, it's like really common now where they don't even wait for them to be in the UFC. It's just after they get 2 or 3 pro fights, boom, gone. Like they don't even give anyone a chance here. And yeah, like how you're saying, like who's the big name around here at the like it's getting to the point where like if there is anybody, they're gone. So like who knows, you know?
Right. The following was deep too. So the deep names. I mean, man, look at the crowds that you just said used to pull the names out here. We used to ticket sales were easy. I didn't even have to sell tickets. I just give them to friends or family, and it would just be gone.
Well, yeah, and even matchmaking at that time was a lot easier because you could kind of book fights that were more entertaining, and you wouldn't need to like, okay, we have to get this guy on solely because he's a ticket seller, even though he's not that good. Like you could actually bring in two
Yeah.
like really good fighters, even if they don't sell a lot of tickets because there's already going to be a crowd, and like that was in my early days of matchmaking when I was like assisting Ray Flores, and it's like, all right, let's add a heavyweight fight because we don't have any heavyweights on, so let's do that, or let's it, whatever it may be. It's like it wasn't solely who's going to sell tickets. And even if this is the best fighter in the world, we don't want them because they're not going to sell. It wasn't as cutthroat back then, so like I don't know. It was like what's going to entertain the already packed crowd is what we kind of like had the luxury of doing. Where then years later, like at the end of my matchmaking days, which God, I'm glad I'm done with, but it's like I can't even book the best fights. It's just who's going to bring people. That's kind of what sucked about like the more recent times.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so we mentioned York Ash. Uh, he ended up training with you. Did you approach him or did he approach you for that?
And we went up on a card together again and talked, and he came up, did some training with us. I mean, he was like a floater, like he would travel all over. So he wound up training with us for a little bit. We wanted to get people around our weight class, that were fighting. So it was kind of like just a mutual for a little while.
You go down to Indianapolis, and it was at Legends of Fighting, and you fight a pretty tough guy down there, named Jeremy Ashley. What do you
Man,
remember about him?
this story, ready for this one?
Yeah,
So I think I was actually in between contracts with Ring of Combat.
yeah, Lou
I
Negative.
think, yeah. And I go down there, and that's another story. We could go. I broke contract with that because they kept rescheduling my second round fight. I had a no contest fight with Estrada in between
Right.
there. That was crazy. We could touch base on that, or you want to go on the Jeremy Ashley one first? Because the Ashley one was crazy.
If you want to go back to Jay Estrada, yeah, that's fine. So I actually had Jay on one of the podcasts. Um,
Yeah.
Brought that fight up. What's your take?
Yeah. Yeah, now that we're older, man, I overplayed that up kick trying to get a point, and I didn't get it, and they DQ'd me.
Yeah,
No contested us.
or no
Let's
contest.
be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be honest. I go back thinking about it now. Why the hell did I play that up so much? I should have just whatever. He baby kicked me in the yeah, I heard a little doom, you feel a little up it wasn't he shouldn't have done it. Did it on purpose. It wasn't malicious. I don't think so.
Mhm.
It was just heat of the moment. We were scrapping, right? I threw the mess out of him. We locked up. I slammed him. Man, he's got some heavy hands. I'll tell you
He
that. I
does.
felt the heavy, but the up kick. They didn't let me go. I didn't say I wanted to stop, but the New Jersey State Athletic Commission doesn't play around.
Mhm.
Um, they stopped at no contest. It was horrible. I was so upset.
Yeah.
So they were going to bring it back, though. They were, and they kept prolonging the next round. And at this time of my career, I was fighting and I was trying to fight all the time. And I was trying to, that was how I was making ends meet, you know. I was trying to put food on the table and up my career. I didn't have time to wait, nor did I know the extent of that show or maybe what it could have opened up. I was just trying to fight. And
Right.
I think they prolonged something or did something. I broke the contract. I didn't get to go into the second round. They moved Jay in. I think he wound up making the finals. Um, and then I go to Legends of Fighting. I wasn't even supposed to fight Jeremy. I was supposed to fight this jujitsu guy, not this young college wrestler that wrestled for Michigan that was pretty good after I, found out after I was there. So, extremely tough kid. Very first round, I'm beating the mess out of him. I'm owning him in every position. I'm actually feeling really, really good. I'm transitioning. I'm hitting him, and we're scrapping. And then maybe middle of that round, everything stops for me. My body's shutting down. My arms aren't working. My legs aren't working. Just not feeling right. And maybe like an adrenaline dump. I'm thinking, and that's like I'm
Mhm.
trying to manage an adrenaline dump. And I squeak out the round. I don't remember what position I'm in. Maybe I'm in guard, but I squeak out the round. I win the round. Maybe I missed a submission attempt or something, but I remember going into the second round thinking I'm gonna use the bathroom on myself, and I remember my old man being mad at me and telling me I wasn't training right. Like I remember being mad at him, going, "No, there's something wrong. We're arguing." And my other corner is like trying to calm me down, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna crap myself in this cage. My stomach started hurting, my hands started going, and I get out in the second round and I hit him with a takedown or hit him with something, and I'm there and I literally try to transition into armbar triangle. He pulls, I got triangle on my back, and I got him in a midway. I can't squeeze. If I squeeze, it's gonna be bad news. And then I remember Jeremy raising up with the biggest elbow I've ever it's in slow motion to my head, and he hit me with the nastiest elbow I've ever been hit with, and I survived it. And anyways, I squeak out a split decision, and I remember not being able to like even get back to the cage, and nobody knows the whole story of this. I argued with my dad the whole way about being in shape, and I knew I was ready, and we were griping about that because. Um, it was a fight I probably should have dominated. I had him in so many different things and couldn't finish. But I wound up getting really, really sick. I got a norovirus on like Monday. Somebody had called us and said that Indianapolis, the Olive Garden that we had eaten at, and there was a norovirus that went around. Over 300 people were sick. That's
Jeez.
where I ate before weigh-ins. And my wife and my kids and everybody got sick, the entire family. It was horrible. So what's even crazier is I got a letter in the mail later because the state health department was involved. I wound up getting a check for like 4 grand like 2 years later because of the whole mess. It was it was crazy.
Really good wrestlers on that card. Rex Holman. Did you know him or of him or have any interactions with him?
Nah.
Do you know who I'm
Mm.
talking about or from Ohio State?
No, I mean the name rings a bell, but no, I didn't know or anything. No.
Okay.
Um, that card I came in, I remember was at the saloon, right?
Yeah, 8 Second Saloon.
Yeah, that place was packed. Smelled like cigarettes. It
Hmm.
was it was it was a rough environment. Yeah.
So let's go about you went up at Doolin and then you eventually leave there to open up Northwest Indiana MMA Academy. What caused the separation from you and Doolin?
More so wanting direct attention. I think we wanted. I had a fight. We had big fights coming up, and I think a lot of the attention at that time was going towards Darren, and it wasn't personal. Like, oh, like we don't want Darren to get attention, but we needed to get some personalized attention, and then it was already at the point where I was always wanting to go and just pick everyone's brain, not stay at one place.
Mm,
So if I went off on my own, I didn't feel as bad as if I broke away at, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Always trying to get pieces of everybody. I mean, I think that's touch base now. People move away now so that they can get the flavor now all in one place. They want, the academies that have everything under one roof for what convenience.
Right.
Um, that's what we run into.
Where was your academy located? Did you have your own building or were you renting or?
So we had bounced around. Like the first place was in Valpo, and then I had a couple places that we rented, and then my old man at that time of the career with the MMA, we had a big giant pole barn that was unfinished, and we were running it out of there.
Mhm.
It was crazy. I can remember training in there with like 15 guys, and there was no the air wasn't working on concrete. We got torpedo heaters in there warming us up. We were nuts.
So I remember, I think you told me the story long time ago, and I don't remember which promoter it was that he said it to, but and if I'm mistaken, let me know. But I think that Josh Shockley requested to fight you on a local card, and you were pretty upset about that. Does that ring a bell?
Mm-mm.
Man, I wish I remember who. What I mean, like which promoter that was. Because I remember like, yeah, I helped him with his wrestling and he's calling me out. And I think Shockley said, no, it had nothing to do with that. I just thought it'd be a good win for me to have or fight for me to have, whatever. I was just curious if
Really?
there's
No.
animosity. Was there much animosity, which it looked like it was from an outside perspective, between Jason Tabor and Eddie Wineland going into their fight?
No.
No?
In fact, I got no man. We were all friends. That was the fight at that time that everybody wanted to see, and that was the fight that obviously catapulted one or the other. Um, I think leading up to it, there was some banter that went on. If I remember,
Yeah.
Abe liked to get under your skin and cause you, try to get you rattled. But I think it was more of just trying to get into his head. It wasn't personal that much at that time. Tay was mad at the Wozniewskis for a while, but that was his personality. I mean, he was the loose cannon, right? That was a good fight until, I mean, we knew we couldn't get hit in the face too much. We had to implement the wrestling. We couldn't get to him, and then a lot of people don't know at that time when he got hit with that first one. When he got hit with the first couple, he was rocked, right? He came back to the corner. He ripped all the skin off of his big toe. I don't know how. Oh, it was disgusting.
Canvas.
And in the corner, I don't even know what to do. I taped that big chunk of meat to his other toe, and then when we cut it all off, it was disgusting. And
Right.
then, in fact, next one, the other toe did the same thing. And
Oh
I'm not talking. It
man.
was stunk of meat. So he was not planting his feet at all, and he was trying to move. And then Eddie just teed off.
Yeah.
Like it was bad news. In the corner, I'm like, what do I do? It was nasty.
I got two more before we wrap up. You were doing a contest to get like a free training camp at Extreme Couture. They had you make a video, so on and so forth. Did anybody ever
Yeah.
actually win that? Like, did they follow up with anybody or no? Or was that just a gimmick that they were doing?
Somebody, man, I don't know. I often wondered that, man. That I followed up. Someone beat me at the very end, I guess. I don't know if it ever came about or not.
Right.
It's a good question. Yeah.
And
Too
then
late
one more
now.
for you. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I was asking everybody this dream fight. You could fight if back in your prime when you were looking to get in the UFC. What was that one fight that you wanted that like you didn't get or one opponent, I should say.
obviously, I mean, I always wanted to fight in the UFC. I fought in the IFL and a lot of other big fights and did some things. And Ultimate Fighter dangled the carrot for a long time. Got many
Mhm.
stories on that.
Right.
Man, I wanted to fight Pulver. I mean, he was the man back in my day. That's the
Yeah.
guy I wanted to fight. That's who I wanted. Nothing personal. It's just he was the man. Yeah.
Jen's
If I
Bowl.
could have at the end of my career, well, I almost got an opportunity at the end. He was on his way out, obviously, and I was
Yeah.
out. He fought Choate, I think.
He did. It was at Chicago Cage Fighting Championships.
There you go.
Uh,
I don't know.
ODM Expo
Sure they
Center
fought
in Villa Park. All right,
Cuban
Kevin.
that one.
Nice having you. Always like rehashing. Thank you, whoever is listening, and hope to keep doing these. Have a good one.
Thanks.